Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for turning out this morning. This is not a press conference. This is more of a conversation. So, and actually, we want Joe and Dewayne and Chauncey wanted to do this earlier in the week, but I was encouraging them to wait till we got back and do it on an off day. So, with 5 hours of sleep and not enough coffee, I should have listened to them. So, anyway. So again, not a press conference. The format will be sort of press conference style, though. We'll have people on the Zoom, so we'll be batting back and forth between those two things. Want to make some quick introductions here. Dewayne Hankins, on your right, is in his 9th season with the Trailblazers. Let me turn my page here to get to my notes. Don't use your fingers, it's COVID. Sorry. Dewayne was named our president of basketball operations on November 12th. Prior to that, Dewayne served as our chief commercial officer and executive vice president and is an all-around great guy. Joe Cronin is in his 16th year overall. He's on your far left. Joe was promoted to interim general manager on December 3rd. Prior to that, Joe served as one of our assistant general managers, and before that was our director of player personnel and pro scout and salary cap analyst. And last of all, you all know Chauncey Billups. He's in his first season. Prior to joining the Trailblazers, Chauncey was an assistant coach with the LA Clippers and a TV star for ESPN. He's had an illustrious 17-year NBA career, NBA Finals MVP, 5-time NBA All-Star, and has won pretty much every off-the-court award there is. So, with that, we'll get started. Dewayne, actually all three gentlemen are going to have an opening comment or two, so we'll start with Dewayne. Go ahead, Dewayne.
Thanks, Jim. And it's business operations, just to be clear, not basketball.
Basketball
So, yeah, you would not want me running that. In any case, yeah, I just want to thank Jody Allen and Burke Holt for this opportunity. It's been great getting to know the Allen family over the last 8.5 years with this organization in bigger and bigger roles, and to culminate in this opportunity to lead the business side is something I'm really grateful for. And I'd be remiss not to thank my mentor and boss, Chris McGowan, who I worked with for the last 11 years. Chris and I go way back, 2 organizations, won championships with the LA Kings and the LA Galaxy back in Los Angeles, and Chris is a mentor for me, and we should all have people believe in us the way that Chris believed in me to be ready for this opportunity and this challenge that we have ahead of us. And on the business side, we do have challenges. You know, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. You know, we're all still wearing masks, distanced, and we're trying to gather people in an arena. And, you know, it's disrupted our business. It's disrupted all the sports and entertainment business. So, you know, a lot of the playbook that we had previous to the pandemic is kind of out the window as we're trying to learn our new way post-pandemic. So then for us, that's probably going to be leading in a data-driven way as a data-driven organization moving forward on the business side. We really have a lot of opportunity to drive revenue to help Joe with what he needs in building and continuing to build a competitive basketball team here. And we really want to understand our fans where they are. That's really, really important to us. And then the community. The community is a big piece for us. There's a lot of stakeholders in this community who have a high value set for us, and we need to maintain that and keep that and move that forward. We need to inspire our community, and we need to raise the community around us, especially right now in Portland. And then the other 2 things I would say are innovation. Going back to the early years with Paul when I was here, that was always something that he pushed for, and Jody continues to do that for us now. So I want to continue to innovate where we can on the business side. And then finally, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm proud to work in this league where I think we're at the forefront of things like diversity, equity, inclusion, and racial justice. And our team, particularly over the last couple of years, has really been at the forefront, and I'd like to keep that going for us. So thank you for your time.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming out and spending some time with us. Exciting times for the Trailblazers. Exciting times for me. Lifelong dream of mine to get an opportunity like this. And I'm thankful for all the people that have helped me get here, particularly Jody Allen, Burke Holt, Chauncey Billups, Dewayne Hankins, all of the Trailblazers organization for trusting me to help this organization transition forward. One of my main goals, especially early on, and this will continue throughout, is to improve this culture And to do that, I've been meeting with as many people as possible, players, coaches, as much staff as I can, and I will continue to do so. And really, I've just tried to listen. Like, how are you doing? How are things going for you? What does the organization do well? What can we do better? What are your goals? How can we help you accomplish your goals? So I've been getting a lot of really good feedback, and it's been encouraging, and I think we can move forward and continue to ramp up communication and make some positive fixes and integrations, and just overall building a better overall feeling around here. And so far, I'm really encouraged from what I'm hearing, so that's exciting. I've spent a lot of time with Dewayne lately, and another goal of ours is to integrate business and basketball to where we're working together and putting the best product possible out on the floor and to our fans and for our employees to feel welcome and to want to share in this awesome basketball experience. So I look forward to continuing to do so. You know, the staff members that I talk to who work for Dewayne rave about him and his personality and leadership and intelligence and creativity and vision. And I'm pretty convinced that Rip City's going to be really happy with not only the product they see, you know, on the TV or on the court or in the fan experience, but also in the community. So I think we're in a good place. I've known Chauncey Billups for a long time. Think the world of him. I think as great as he was as a player, I think he's going to be a better coach. He has a really unique skill set, you know, in his leadership ability, his competitiveness, his ability to motivate, his feel, his basketball IQ, the way he gets the best out of people. I'm just really encouraged by what I've seen so far, and I thought I would see that, and I know it's going to continue to thrive. So having us all together, it's fun and it's exciting, and you know we have some challenges with this roster. We like our team. We've had some high moments and we've had low moments this season. It's been kind of a unique year so far for us, but we're committed to being aggressive, to being willing to take on risks, to being creative and forward thinking. And we think that Chauncey and I, we talk a lot about what it takes to win and what we believe winning basketball looks like. And I think we're super aligned in what type of product and what type of team we need to have in order to reach the levels that we're trying to reach. And I'm excited to just hit the ground running and keep working and just keep improving every day. So again, thanks for having us.
It's funny, before I even start, I was just sitting here kind of thinking, like, obviously this is my first year head coaching, and these two guys have like a ton of more experience than I do at my job, but I'm like the longest tenured dude in our position right now. It's crazy. I was sitting there like, this is crazy. But nah, I really, first of all, I want to congratulate both of you guys, you know, on the new positions. I'm really excited to be able to work with both of you guys and build a real sustainable winner, you know. I think that all the really, really successful organizations in our league have synergy throughout the organization, and they're vertically aligned, and that's really important. That's really important to be aligned and be on the same page from a business perspective. You know, we need each other. You know, we just need each other. We all do. So being able to know what the left hand is thinking if you're the right hand is really important. So I'm excited that we'll start to have that as an organization. You know, for me as a coach, I'm just trying to build a standard of excellence. You know, where we come to work every single night and we just compete. We compete our butts off every single night and live with the results. And as a coach, that's all I want. You know, that's all I want. That's all I ever did as a player, is I just came to work with my lunch pail and played my butt off. Sometimes you won, sometimes you didn't, but you could live with the results. And I just think as an organization, that's what we want from all of our employees, you know. And so I'm excited. I really am. I'm really, really excited to see what the future holds for us. I'm confident, extremely confident, you know, in you dudes, along with myself. So I'm ready to rock and roll. So I guess it's question time.
Yes, it is. So
all I've been
if you
waiting
would
for.
please, Chauncey knows a lot of you guys, but the other two gentlemen probably don't necessarily. So if you would please state your name and affiliation with your questions. And again, we'll be taking a few calls from Zoom as well. So
Before we start that, like, I'm a coach that when people are late, I find people. Y'all had one person late in y'all's crew today, and it was Fentress. But we'll talk about that later.
all right, on that note, we'll get started. Who has a question? Jake Quick?
Hi, Joe. Hey, Jess. Can you kind of just outline like what your marching orders have been from above?
Yeah, hit the ground running, and that involves a lot of different parts of many different tasks. You know, I mentioned a little earlier, my primary task right now, or my primary goal these first few days, was to assess the culture and look at ways that we can build and improve off of it. Another one I mentioned already was start integrating business and basketball. So those are two of them. A lot of this is, and it's all based on this culture and integration, is just communicating and finding out, you know, where our weaknesses are, where our strengths are, what holes we need to plug, what shifts we need to make, what we need to do to better the organization. And the same thing goes with the team. You know, we're evaluating the team constantly, you know. What injuries do we have? How does that impact our play on the floor? What holes do we have in this roster? What is it going to take to compete to the highest level? What changes do we need to make? What do we need to be patient with? So a lot of communicating, assessing, evaluating, watching, and particularly just listening.
Go ahead, Aaron Fentress.
So you're the interim GM, but how much authority and power will you have if there's the interim tag next to your name? And do you know how long you will be the interim? Like, what's the plan in terms of hiring a permanent GM, and could that be you?
Well, ownership has been very upfront with me, and they've told me that they believe in me, and obviously by giving me this role, they trust me to transition this organization. So they haven't made, you know, many declarations other than this is a nice venue for you to be able to do good work, and you'll be evaluated, and I do have a chance. You know, and they told me that you know, you'll have an opportunity. This is, you know, going to be a fair, you know, I wouldn't want to say fight, but a fair opportunity to prove yourself. But I'm not really worried about that. I'm worried about doing what's best for the organization. I'm worried about putting us in a good spot and moving us forward. And whether this for me lasts 2 months or 12 years, I know I did a great job if I leave us in a better place than I found it.
Sean Hyken, Bleacher Report.
Yeah. Joe, like with you being the interim GM, let's say that tomorrow a team were to call you with an offer for, let's say, a significant rotation player, and it's a deal that you like and you think it's a good idea to do. Do you have the authority to pull the trigger on something like that as the interim GM?
Sure. Well, just to explain just how it works a little bit, I would say for most general managers, you create your deals, you field your calls, you get the deal to a certain point where both teams are agreeing on it pending ownership approval. So the way I've kind of approached it is I'm going to get the deal to the 1 yard line, and then I'm going to take it to Jody and Bert, and then they make the final call. You know, and they'll have our recommendations as to what to do. So it's pretty standard that way in the regard of, you know, there is a clearinghouse you have to go through, but my understanding is, yes, go out and do your job, find deals, participate as if you are the GM. Mm-hmm.
Casey Holdall, Trailblazers.com.
Two-part. Joe, you mentioned challenges to the roster. I wonder if you could explain a little bit more about what you mean by that. And Dewayne, what is kind of your first priority, I guess, in this role in regards to both Chauncey and Joe, and kind of that bringing together of the two sides of the organization?
Who would you like to go first,
I would
Case?
prefer to hear from Joe first. Thank you.
Well, the core challenge I think we're facing is it's extremely difficult to go from good to great. to take that next leap, that extra whatever percent it is, 5, 10. You know, we've had a solid team for years. We had a ceiling. And how do we bust through that ceiling in order to really compete? And when we say really compete, we mean walk into the gym every night and have that swagger to know that, you know, we are one of the best teams in the league. We have a very realistic chance of winning this whole thing. I don't know if we have that swagger now or that confidence. Sometimes you just know it and you have that pop in your step. And it's evaluating what we need to do in order to, what pieces we need to add, what changes we need to make in order to take that next step. I would say that's by far our biggest challenge.
Yeah, and I think case for me, you know, we live in I've worked in a couple different cities in my time, and Portland is one of the best sports cities. I think people started waiting for MLS Cup tickets on Monday, a week early. You know, we have 2 national writers on the NBA side. Joe and I were just talking, and Ben Golliver and Chris Haynes, who's got roots here and been here. There's so much passion for sports in this city, and I think what we have been hit with over the last 21 months is this pandemic, which has kind of put a stop on all of it. And what we want to do and what we hope to do is get people excited again about coming back to the Moda Center. There's probably more friction than there's ever been with people having to, it's just harder than it's ever been to get people to come to games. And we know that there's a behavioral change that's happened over the last 20 months that we need to be ready and prepared for when and if this pandemic ends or it becomes an endemic thing that we have to start to deal with. And with most teams, if you can call another team and say, hey, you guys have had a #1 overall pick. How did you market in that area? Or, hey, you just lost this star player. How do you guys manage that? With this, we're all going through it together. And so we're all learning together as teams, and the league has been a really good partner in that. But unlike most businesses that get disrupted and end up going out of business, we know that this is a temporary thing, but we do still have to adapt to it on the business side. So for us, it's really getting to the bottom of, you know, what are the changes, how do we adapt, and how do we become a stronger business coming out of it? So,
Aaron Fentress, the Oregonian.
This is for Joe and Chauncey. So clearly Neil built this team, but you've been around the entire time. There's been a huge disconnect between how Neil sees the team and how the fan base sees the team. So my 2-part question for you and Chauncey are, 1, how do you view the team? Is it differently than how Neil did? And 2, how in lockstep are you and Chauncey in terms of how you view this team as you move forward trying to make moves?
I think, you know, throughout a front office, you always have different views and you have similar views. I mean, you collaborate and you discuss players and whether it's a draft pick or a trade, and there's many things that you agree on because you were a part of it, you voted for it. And then there's other things you disagree on, where maybe it was a draft pick where one person liked one player and one person liked another, and you may not be fully aligned on that player, but you definitely are once you go into that room and make that selection and then have that player on your roster, and you're together on that. So I would say, you know, there's a lot of agreement and some disagreement. And I think we all have our own perspectives on what it takes to win basketball games and what the makeup of the team needs to look like. And I'll let Chauncey address that a little bit as to just his comfort level with where we're at with all that.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are used to hearing from me on these things, but for me, I just think it's pretty consistent across the board around the league on wins. And one, that's having, you know, a competitive spirit about your team. That's having pretty high basketball IQ about your team. And a lot of front offices value different things, you know. It just is what it is. Like, everybody's different. For me, those are some of the things that I really value and I believe in players. And, you know, look, our roster is our roster, and we got some really talented players. And when we're playing well and we're playing together, we're pretty damn good, you know. We've proven that already this year. And then we can be pretty bad too, you know, when we don't bring it. You know, obviously, we need health, you know, to be able to win in this league. But we've been healthy a few times and just hadn't played well, several times actually. And then we've played good a lot of times, and a lot of that, you know, I got to take on my shoulders. I got to be a little better in preparing us. But two, you got to find a group that has the chemistry and synergy on the floor. It just kind of is what it is. But that's a league-wide thing.
We're going to take one from the Zoom real quick. Mike Richmond, go ahead.
This is for Joe. You mentioned having conversations with players and staff members and all that, and try to kind of get your feet under you. How much will those conversations sort of direct your decision making? How will you incorporate that input in the coming weeks?
It will impact it a lot. I mean, I'm really taking to heart the stuff that I'm hearing, and most of the stuff I'm hearing is really positive, and it's fixes around the edges. It's little tweaks. It's continuing to do what we're doing. Like, as far as I'm getting a bunch of good feedback about having these meetings and communicating, and I've learned. I mean, I knew about how important communication was, but I've learned that this is a really important thing to keep doing. So, continually meet and really go out of your way to make people feel welcome and heard and, respected and valued. So, to answer your question, Mike, I would say every step of the way, I'm taking every bit of advice I can get from all the different people in this organization, and from externally. I've been getting a ton of calls from colleagues or people I've worked with in the past that, hey, we're here for you. If you have any questions, I have a little advice for you right now, and I'm just listening, and I'm taking it all to heart.
Jason Quick.
Dewayne, attendance has been down. What is your guys' intel telling you about why?
Yeah, I think it's really just there's probably two sides to it, right? There are the fans who, no matter how safe we make the environment, aren't feeling comfortable coming to live events. And so there's that. And then on the other side, there's the fans who don't want to follow the policy of a negative test or being vaccinated. And that's a big enough swath of fans to be a challenge for us, right? And so when I talk about that playbook of having to figure out, okay, who are the new fans that we can bring to the building, that's where we need to kind of go. The one positive out of this is we have done a great job with single game ticket sales here. So we allowed a lot of season ticket holders to pause their seats and say, we understand that it's not safe to come this year. Those seats have opened up to be single game tickets, and it's allowed a lot of new fans who have never been to games before, or never been in this way, to come in our building and hopefully create some new fans.
Nick Krokey, Fox 12.
Joe, you've known a lot of guys in the league, obviously. Anybody you're reaching out to a lot that really kind of trying to bend their ear and vice versa on how to do this?
Trying to think of the first call I made. Usually that's your natural instinct. Hey, I think I called Chad Buchanan in Indiana, someone who I'd worked with here, someone who had been through this before. He was the interim GM here in 2011. So I called him, fairly soon after, we had announced it, and just said, what advice do you have? And his response was, be yourself, be you. And I think I hear that more than anything. Just be you, and you'll be fine. And it's interesting, and I'm sure as I go here, I'll run into different things, and just hearing from all these different people, you just know that, and there's so many viewpoints and so many different ways that people do it. Just knowing that you have all these different angles as resources, not only internally. I mean, I have a great support group here, but just around the league. It's just kind of cool, and it's validating, knowing you did things the right way throughout your career, to where really busy people are taking hours and hours out of their day to just say, hey, I'm here to help you. It's cool. It's fun.
AJ McCourt, Coin.
So Chauncey sort of made this joke already that the three of you guys are incredibly new here. He's the longest tenured one. It's been like 6 months. Whereas you have somebody like Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum, who've been the backbone, the face of this franchise for the better part of a decade.
Sure.
What has been your communication with Dame and with CJ independently, or together, whatever, since you got the interim tag about where this franchise, where you want to take it?
Sure. Have had multiple long talks with each of them, really good sit downs, really collaborative, again, just trying to listen. I'm asking questions, how's things, how are you, what are your goals, really similar. And I've been really encouraged by the feedback I get from both of those guys and a lot of our players. It's similar that, we like our team, we need to get better. How do we do that? And we really spend a lot of time on that. And it's not just in how do we tweak our roster or what big trades do we need to make. It's how can we help you off the court? How can we help you in the training room, the strength room? How can we help you in the community? So I think, early on, like, this is a wide, we're trying to cast a wide net. Like, what's all the things we can do for you? But, of course, it always goes back to basketball, especially with, the players. And I'm really encouraged by the conversations. And I think, they're happy with Chauncey and, really enjoy him and his staff. And it's just something we can build off of. And we know we need to do some things with the roster, and we will.
Sean Hyken?
This is for Dewayne. Has there been any headway made in bringing Root to more streaming platforms than it's currently on?
So, I mean, the one thing about Root is that it is on more available than any station we've had, almost twice as many fans. So there is always conversations going on between Root and the other providers. Obviously, we're on Fubo, we're on DirecTV Stream. We'd love to be on YouTube and Hulu, but it's an ongoing conversation between Root and those providers, and we certainly lend an ear when we can to try to help push that forward. So,
Casey, hold on.
Joe, you've obviously been with the team now for, I think, 15 seasons. In an industry that is not necessarily real easy to stay in the same place for a long time, particularly through various administrations. So I'm curious, what do you think that says about you, or how do you feel like you've been able to do that? And also, you mentioned you had known Chauncey for a long time. What was the start of your guys' relationship?
To answer your first question, I think the way I carry myself has helped me, have a really long shelf life here. Eventually I know it's going to end, but I've been through multiple GMs, multiple transitions, and I think knowing that I'm a team player, knowing that I'm trustworthy, and then knowing that I'm really good at what I do has allowed me to continue to grow and to continue to stay. I mean, a couple of years ago, I started thinking about I was ready to be a GM. I thought my technicals were getting really good, my player evaluation, my salary cap, analysis stuff, my fluency in analytics. So I've been constantly learning and trying to create this opportunity where, now I'm able to take advantage of. Chauncey and I both grew up in Denver. We played basketball against each other in high school. He beat me in the state championship game. Yeah.
Wow.
I've been waiting for this for a long, long time.
I stole a state championship from him, man. Joe was actually a really good player. Really good player. I mean, we played each other in the state championship. I was a junior, he was a senior. And it's funny because there were two twins on his team that I grew up playing against. Like, Joe's from the suburbs. I'm from the inner city. And, like, I played in this league that was in the suburbs. Like, it was the only time we ever left the neighborhood is to go play in this league. And these two twins, Keith and Dean, who are friends of his, was like my nemesis. Like, every tournament we played against them in the championship. So we get to high school, and it was in '94, right?
Yeah.
'94, and we played. It was Horizon High School against George Washington High School, and we played them. And, like, I knew all about, obviously, the twins, but then there was this big dude that was beasting everybody in the middle. I'm like, how are we gonna deal with him though? So it was interesting. And then I'm friendly with his sister, who was like one of the greatest players to come out of the state. She's Player of the Year, All-American, everything. 80. So we go back a long way.
I take it back. It is a press conference. We do have breaking news. That's correct. Joe Becker.
Yeah, Joe, you talked about all the GMs you've worked under. Is there one thing that's been consistent with all the GMs that you've learned the most, would you say?
I would almost say it's the opposite. It's the inconsistencies, the multiple different, like, strengths, like, or skill sets. You have some who are dynamic deal makers. You have some who are really technical in the cap and analytics. You have some who are more well-rounded player evaluators. So it's been interesting and to learn from all these different types of peoples. You know, you have some who are more dynamic with their voices, some who are more collaborative and laid back. So I've just sat back and learned and watched, and pros and cons, and none of us are perfect, and just tried to learn as much as I can. So I feel really lucky. And then, you know, you go to, these people were so good to me as far as taking time to teach me things. You know, I've worked for two of the greatest cap people on earth who really embraced me when I was young and, you know, didn't have a lot to offer, but took time and taught me this stuff. So just taking advantage of those opportunities and just being thankful for that.
Sean Hiking?
Joe, there's been a lot of talk the last couple days about the extension that Dame is going to be eligible for this summer. Obviously, a lot can happen between now and then, whatever happens at the deadline, whatever happens with the GM search, whether that's you long-term or somebody else. But are you operating as though when he's eligible for the extension, the plan is to offer that to him?
I'd love to answer that, except I can't. It's a violation of the collective bargaining agreement to talk about future deals. But constantly in communication with Damian as far as where this roster is headed and where this organization is headed. And, you know, we'll figure these things out when the time comes as far as when we can negotiate and make offers and stuff like that.
Orlando Sanchez, KGW.
To segue off of that, Chauncey, you mentioned the synergy within the building, within the organization. To have Dame, again, I know this is not news to you because you talked to him, but for everyone else nationally, to have Dame come out and say, look, I'm here. I want to be in Portland. I'm committed to this team. I believe in Chauncey. What did that mean to you? What does that mean to the organization to have Dame say something publicly like that?
Yep, it obviously means a lot to me. Talking about a first-time head coach who I'm going to make a ton of mistakes, you know, on a nightly basis. Not only Dame, but all of these guys have been all in there, you know, being patient with me. We're all in this thing together, but obviously to have a player like him be able to stand up and say that he believes in not only myself but the staff and what we believe in and how we see the game is really important, you know. I still just can't believe that he has to continue saying and professing love for this city and for this organization and letting people know that he wants to be here. But that's just kind of the world that we live in, you know. But he's been very, very clear about his intentions, what he wants, where he wants to do it at. And here in-house, we already know the deal, but he continues to press, you know, his issue in you know, around the country, which I don't think he has to do. But you know, that's the social media world we live in.
We're going to pause for 1 second so Jacob can go kill the music. Let's go with Andy Giegerich, Business Journal.
Hey, Dwayne. So you had mentioned the disruptions and the challenges that are going on and all the changes and everything. Have you been talking about sponsors since you started the job, and what are they telling you? Are they mentioning the same things, particularly about the attendance?
You know, our partners have been really supportive of us. You know, we've had a lot of great conversations. We brought a new partner in on our jersey patch, Stormax, who's very excited. Attendance is obviously one factor, but our league, from a viewing standpoint and from an international standpoint and from social media and engagement standpoint, is all those things are as high as they've ever been. It's really just attendance where we're seeing challenges. And I think, you know, we don't like to make it as an excuse. We're working to overcome those challenges, but we're also aware that we at least know some responsibilities toward the pandemic. So when every other metric is still looking good and is up, you know, our partners can feel pretty good about where we're headed from an engagement standpoint with our fan base.
Nick Krupke, do you have another question over there? Did I see your hand or no?
No, I can make one up.
All right, go for it.
Let me think about that.
What are you thinking of? Let's get a joke back for you.
Yeah, for Joe and Chauncey, it's been so many injuries, and the team really hasn't been together the entire season. If the team is able to be healthy at any point going forward, how do you like the roster, both of you? going forward, the chemistry of the team?
Well, I like what we were building on. I really do. You know, we had obviously a tough start, and being on the road has been a challenge for us. But I mean, I just look at the preseason. You know, we have 4 games, and our starters played like 18 minutes together, you know, throughout the preseason. So you wasn't able to build very much, you know. And then we lose to Sacramento, you know, here at home, and then, you know, we go on a pretty good run at home, but struggle on the road. I think when we're healthy, you know, and we're playing and competing at the start of games, throughout the games, we're dangerous, a very, very dangerous basketball team, because we could score with the best of them, you know, and then when we make multiple efforts defensively and we communicate defensively, we can be difficult, you know. We just got to be more consistent. We got to be more consistent. So I like what we have. I really do. I like what we have. We got a lot of pieces, but we're still learning. You know, they're still learning me and the things that I like and want. I think they're close to knowing everything that I like and want, and I'm close to knowing what we have and what we don't have, you know, and we just make it work the best we can.
Agree. Something Chauncey said earlier that I've been thinking a lot about. You know, we've had some really good moments and some really bad moments, and I think early on in the season, especially in a more transitional season like this, I'm more inclined to look at the really high moments, knowing that it's a lot harder to raise your ceiling than to raise your floor. So I point to those high moments saying, yes, we are pretty good, and we have had some nights where we've looked really good. Now, the consistency and whether we have the makeup of a roster that can be consistent is stuff we got to figure out. But, you know, having talent in this league wins ball games, and there's been times where we've shown that we are very talented.
You ready, Nick Krupke?
You got one in the game on Saturday. Timbers, New York City.
Really?
Well, I mean, JT put me on the spot.
Take a wild guess. Timbers.
There we go. We'll get you in a scarf, Chauncey.
I'll be there. I'll be there.
Joe, my apologies if you explained this and it went over my head, but so are you guaranteed to be the interim GM through the end of the season? Or is there a timeline, or are they searching for another GM? Or like, I don't understand the timeline of it.
Yeah, I can answer that.
Okay.
Timeline. So yeah, ownership. You know, they've said they're in the first quarter of this search. They're not in any rush because having Joe here has made them just feel very comfortable with the direction of the team. And yeah, there's just no timeline at this point. So.
Other questions? Oh, Casey, sorry, go ahead.
Joe, you talk about obviously your salary cap expertise. How would you assess where the team is at right now in terms of their cap flexibility, and what kind of environment, I guess, would you say it puts the team in terms of being able to make deals?
Yeah, our books are in really good shape as far as I think we have, you know, we don't have any negative contracts, you know, we call those, or, you know, bad money contracts, to where, you know, we either have really good players on long-term deals, or we have very good players on shorter deals, or we have young players that are coveted around the league. So our books are really clean as far as our ability to transact and to, you know, be really creative that way. Feel good about our cap situation. Very, you know, we've had the previous 5 years, you know, the books were heavier, where we're dodging the tax, or we're in the tax pretty steep, and not a lot of avenues out. And finally, we're getting a little light at the end of the tunnel where, you know, we're happy with the contracts that we have.
Go ahead, Aaron Petrus.
Chauncey, you came to the Blazers with 2 completely different people in these 2 roles. 6 months later, you're here. How have you, I mean, I know you've talked numerous times about how you just stay focused on your team, but there's been a lot going on. How have you handled that beyond just focusing on your team in your other moments of the day with everything that's going on?
Yeah, I think one of the things, Aaron, that saves me from a lot of the stress and stuff like that, and don't take this the wrong way, any of you guys, but I don't read the stuff y'all write. I really don't. I really don't. Like, I hear about stuff, and people call me or text me like, yo, did you hear what? I'll be like, nah, I really didn't, because the job that I'm doing is a tough job. And if I don't stick to the task, and if I allow outside background music, I veer off. I could veer off, you know. So that's kind of what I've continued to do, right? Is just try to find ways to get the best out of our guys. And there's so much to learn. There's just so much to learn with this job. You know, I sit in this office, and I'm here early every day, and I'm here a big chunk of the day, even when the guys are gone. And there's so much to do outside of basketball. You know, so many decisions to make, so many things to make decisions on, talk to, meetings, this. So I really don't have time to worry about all the other stuff. And that's actually been good for me, you know. So that's kind of how I deal with it, Aaron, you know. And I'm just so happy, you know. I'm just so happy to be here. I'm just so happy to have this job. My enthusiasm for it hasn't changed one bit, you know. I'm actually more excited with this new crew, you know. So I'm happy, man. I'm really happy about it.
AJ McCourt.
This is a question for you. You said that you're ready to hit the ground running, you're ready to be aggressive. How much urgency do you feel to go out and be very proactive, even as you're trying to learn what holes you have, what makeup, whether that's mental or physical, with this roster that you have? How much urgency do you feel to figure all that out quickly so you can get to the table?
I want to be patient, and I don't want to be reactive, but I do feel urgent to at least find out what's out there and what's available. Now, I want to be patient in evaluating and making decisions. The urgency, like I said, it's more making calls, talking to people, being creative, thinking out of the box on deals. I have a big urgency to do that, and I do want to be aggressive, but at the same time, I want to pull back and have a really smart and, you know, collaborative look at things. But we're not afraid to do something if we need to, and you know, we'll do whatever we need to in order to take us to this next step. But I do want to be patient, and I don't want to panic about losing a few in a row or hitting a little rough patch. You know, we want to have a bigger picture in mind. So a little bit of each, I would say.
Got time for a couple more. Joe Becker.
Yeah, Dwayne, I was going to ask you about the attendance. How does Portland's attendance during the pandemic compared to the rest of the teams around the league? Is it pretty much the same? Is it better or worse?
Yeah, that's a good question. We're about the same as where we were pre-pandemic from attendance. We're typically top 10. That's right where we're around right now. A lot of teams have been hit with obviously the same challenges that we have. The only variable in that is probably the way that different states have enacted rules around vaccinations or testing or masks in arena. And so I'd say, generally speaking, the teams that have fewer regulations are seeing an easier time bringing people back to games.
Who wants the last question?
Aaron, I know you.
You should have to ask them.
I know you want the last question. Yeah, it's 15 of them. But just know, just because I don't be reading articles, Jason, Aaron, I hear when y'all talk bad about me though. Don't worry about it. People call me and tell me, dog. No, I'm just teasing, man. I'm just teasing.
All right, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks everyone for coming. Thanks for
Thank you.
Sorry I butchered your title, Dwayne, but I'll blame it on my quarter cup of coffee there. If anybody needs bios on these gentlemen, we have them right here if you want to grab them on your way up. Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, guys, for doing